The missing part. Tomorrow refused to forget. A narration script for reflections of most you can. There's a kind of waiting that changes a person before it gives them what they asked for. Not the waiting of a clock, counting toward an appointment. A slower one, the waiting that lives underneath a life. While the bills get paid, while the messages get answered, while the mirror gets faced every morning as if nothing were missing at all. You have felt it, not as a thought, but as a weight, a sense that somewhere between you, who you were supposed to become, and who you are right now, a peace did not arrive. You have looked for it in new cities, in new people, in the version of yourself that works harder, sleeps less, apologizes more than it needs to. You have looked for it in the past, replaying the year it might have been lost, searching old rooms for a door you swear used to be. You have looked for it in the future, hoping it is simple, waiting on the other side of some milestone you have not reached yet. A job, a marriage, a number in the bank account, a version of your body or your name that finally feels earned. And still, nothing answers back. Not the room, not the people, not even the plans you once trusted enough to build a life around. Maybe you have already tried the obvious remedies, a new routine, a new city, a conversation you rehearsed for weeks before finally having it, only to find the egg still sitting exactly where you left it, patient, unimpressed by your effort. This is the part no one warns you about, that the missing part does not always respond to movement. You can change almost everything around it and still find it waiting in the same place, untouched by the noise of your rearranging. This is not the story about finding what is missing. This is a story about where it has been the entire time. Here's the hidden problem. The one most people never say out loud because it sounds too strange to admit. The missing part is not always outside of you. Sometimes it is a part of you that has not happened yet. This sentence resists the mind at first. The mind wants a location. It wants the missing part to be a place it can travel to, a person it can find, a decision it can undo. This is not stubbornness. It is how mind protects itself. It is easier to search for something than to sit with the possibility that searching itself is premature. The philosopher Paul Ricoeur spent much of his life studying how people become who they are, not through a single moment of self-discovery, but through a narrative. A life only makes sense as a story. He argued, and a story is never finished from the inside of it. You cannot read your own ending while you are still writing the sentence. The chapters you are living through right now will only make sense in hindsight, from a vantage point you do not yet occupy, which means the part of you that feel absent may not be lost chapters. There may be chapters that have not been written yet, waiting for a version of you that only exists further down the page. This is difficult to accept because absence feels like proof. If something is missing, the mind assumes it once existed and was taken. But there is another kind of missing. The missing of a room before the furniture arrives. Empty, yes, but not because something was stolen. Empty because something has not been placed yet there. The two kinds of empty feel identical from the inside. They are not. The question is not what did I lose. The question is what has not arrived yet, and why do I keep mistaking its absence for abandonment? Tomorrow has always been a strange witness to this, not a mystical force, not a fortune waiting to be read out loud. Tomorrow is simply the part of time that has not yet been permitted to answer. Today asks its questions out loudly, urgently, sometimes cruelly. Why hasn't this healed? Why does this still hurt the same way it did a year ago? Why does the effort keep meeting silence month after month, as if the universe misplaced the receipt? Today wants an answer. Now, because today is impatient by nature. It It only has itself to work with. It has no memory of what came before, the pain, and no view of what came after it. It is a single frame, mistaking itself for a whole film. Tomorrow does not answer today's questions on today's schedule. This is not cruelty, it is a structure. The seed that does not owe an explanation to the soil about why it has not yet become a tree. It is not hiding, it is becoming, in a place too dark for anyone, including itself, to observe. If you dug it up to check on its progress, you would not find growth. You would only find the growth that stopped because you interrupted it. What is hidden from today may become clear later. Not always, not on command, but some delays are not empty. Some silences are still working. The way a wound works. Beneath the bandage, no one is allowed to lift yet. This is close to something the Quran Kareem itself gestures toward, without needing to be quoted directly here. In its many reminders that a person may dislike a thing that carries good within it, and love a thing that carries harm. That human sight is narrow, bound to now, while the fuller picture belongs to a vantage point none of us occupy, while we are still inside our own story. Not everything unseen is absent. Some of it is simply not yet permitted to be seen. Tomorrow, in that sense, is not an oracle. It is simply further along the same road. It has already walked past the part that today is still standing in front of, confused, checking its watch, certain that it has been left behind. But knowing this does not make the waiting easier. That is the human struggle, and it deserves to be named honestly instead of softened into something easier to hear. There is exhaustion of trying again after disappointment. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet kind, the fifth or sixth attempt that nobody applauds because it looks identical to the first. There is the private math of wondering if effort ever compounds, or if it simply accumulates, without ever converting into anything. Like a currency no one will accept. There is the fear, rarely spoken, that life has already been distributed to other people, and that yours arrived short or late, or not at all. There is the particular loneliness of hiding this from the people closest to you, smiling through a conversation while somewhere underneath it, a quieter voice keeps asking whether any of it is actually going anywhere. There is the comparison that arrives uninvited, late at night, when someone else's timeline appears to be moving well, while yours seems to be standing still. As if life were a single race with a single clock, rather than many roads, each with its own weather, each reaching in its own places in its own season. It is a quiet cruelty of the mind, this habit of measuring an unfinished chapters of your own life against the finished chapter of someone else's, and calling the comparison fair. There is also the temptation to want proof before continuing, a sign, a guarantee, some confirmation, sent in advance that the waiting will end and something and not in nothing. But proof, by its nature, arrives after the fact. To demand it beforehand so as tomorrow to become today, which is the one thing tomorrow cannot do without ceasing to be tomorrow at all. Viktor Frankl, writing from inside the worst conditions a human being can survive, noticed something that outlives its origin. Suffering stops being unbearable the moment it is given a why. Not an explanation that erases the pain, an orientation that gives the pain a direction to walk in. He was not describing optimism. He was describing structure. A person can carry an extraordinary amount of unresolved weight, as long as they believe the weight is leading somewhere, even if they cannot yet see where it ends. This is why many people quietly break, not from the difficulty itself, but from the suspicion that the difficulty is pointless, that the missing part is not delayed, that it simply does not exist, and they have been waiting for a door that was never built. That suspicion is the loudest voice in the room, and it has never once been proven true by someone who is still standing inside the story. Here's the reversal, and it deserves to be said plainly, without decoration. Maybe tomorrow was not late. Maybe today was still unfinished. Direct Parfit, in his long and careful work on personal identity, made an argument that unsettles almost everyone the first time they hear it. The person you were 10 years ago and the person you will be 10 years from now are not fully the same person. They are connected by memory, by psychological continuity, by the thread of a shared story, but they are not identical. You are, in the real sense, still under construction, not metaphorically, structurally. The self is not the stone handed to you at birth. It is close to a river, recognizable from a distance, entirely different, water, up close. This means the version of you capable of holding what is missing may not exist yet. Not because you are broken, but because you are early. The tree is not the failed forest. It is a forest that has not finished happening. Hal Hershfield's research on the psychology of the future self found something almost embarrassingly simple. Most people relate to their future self the way they relate to a stranger. Distant, unreal, someone else's problem. In brain scans, thinking about one's future self can activate patterns closer to thinking about another person entirely, not oneself. This is precisely why the missing part feels so far away. You have been searching for it with the eyes of today, when it was only ever going to be visible to the eyes of someone you have not become yet. None of this means the ache was imaginary, or that patience alone rewrites a life without effort walking beside it. It means the ache was pointed in the wrong direction, outward toward the location, when it should have been pointed forward toward the version of you still arriving. The search does not end, it simply changes shape. I'm searching from something lost to preparing something for something still on its way. Aristotle had the word for this long before any of the others. Intellecte, the idea that a thing carries its own completion inside it. Unrealized, the way like an acorn carries the oak without yet being one. Potential in his account is not empty. It is nothing waiting to become something. It is already something, simply not finished announcing itself. And Heidegger, in his own difficult language, argued that a human being is not a fixed object sitting still in time, the way a stone sits in a field. A human being is a kind of unfolding, always ahead of itself, always reaching toward possibilities and not yet actual. To exist in its account is to be incomplete on purpose, not incomplete as a flaw, incomplete as a structure. A sentence is not broken simply because it has not reached its final word. So the missing part was never outside your life, waiting in some other city, some other choice, some other year you should have taken differently. It was inside the part of you that has not happened yet. And tomorrow was never withholding it out of cruelty, the way today, exhausted by its own impatience, sometimes assumes. Tomorrow was simply the only place patient enough to hold something that was still being made. You may not be finished yet. That is not the same as being forgotten. There is a difference between a story that has ended badly and a story that has not ended. It is easy, from inside the hard chapter, to mistake the second for the first, to close the book early, convinced of an ending the story never actually reached. But no one who is still breathing, still trying, still asking the question in the quiet hour before sleep has actually reached the last page. The missing part is not a wound in your story. It is a part of a story tomorrow refused to forget. Even when you, on your hardest days, almost did, not everything unseen is absent. Some of it is simply waiting on a page you have not turned to yet. You are not waiting for tomorrow to complete you. You are waiting for yourself to arrive. Reflections of Moshe Gan, the Tomorrow series. Subscribe.